Hey, what's up, Leaf fans? It's TML Domain, aka Persian Poppy. Well, it's been a rather quiet week. The Leafs don't play too many games this week. They play Friday, Saturday back to back against Calgary, and you know it's a rather I would say this is a much needed break for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're hurting on all fronts. Jack Campbell needs time to get back and healthy. Freddie Anderson's been dealing with a lower body injury all season. Matthews with the wrist, Simmons with the wrist. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in Leafland, and it doesn't hurt that the Leafs actually get some practice time to um, address some of their issues that they're having in terms of scoring and playing defense. And one of the lone bright spots with having this break is you get to incorporate different people into your practices, and lo and behold, Alex Galchenyuk shows up, and I have really high hopes for this player in Toronto. Um, so far, he's based on what the Marlies coach and Kyle Dubas is saying, is he's showing uh the right attitude. He's doing all the right things. He's saying all the right things. He wants to learn. He wants to get better. And we'll go through his post practice interview where he says a lot of complimentary things about the organization, the Leafs, what they're doing for him, how they're helping him. So we'll go through that as well. But in general, right now, um, things are looking to get interesting. It's been a rather slow week, but then Kyle Dubas came out and did his mid-season presser, and he said some rather interesting things. There's an article about it on my website, tmldomain.com. But I wanted to make a video about it just to expand on a couple of different things. Um, Kyle Dubas, he looks like he's getting better at things at the very towards his first couple of years. He didn't say much. He didn't give up a lot of information. But here in this presser right here, this mid-season presser, he doesn't mince words at all. He's very direct. There's a question of whether would you trade your top prospect, and he almost cuts the guy off at the end of the question and says yes. I That caught me off guard. Um, to be that direct, to be that honest, and just say yes, just goes to show that it's not necessarily the bottom six or whatever they're looking for. They are willing to pay the price to finally get that left winger to play on either one of the top two lines. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, if Mitch Marner was able to score more goals, this wouldn't be such a pressing need for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Um, they have, so right now the Leafs have Matthews and Tavares as their top two centers, and they have Nylander and Marner as their top two right wingers, and that's a pretty good top four right there. Um, the Winnipeg Jets went and got Dubois, and I think Kyle Dubas sees, once he saw how good Winnipeg became once they acquired a player like Dubois, who's a big body, who can check, um, he can score, he can do a lot of different things, and he fits that Winnipeg Jets team to a T. And Nikolai Ehlers has absolutely taken off since Laine left. Um, and Kyle Connor is still doing his thing. So when you see a team like the Winnipeg Jets, and I said from the very beginning of the season that they're the second best team in this division, if not, they could possibly be the best. We'll see. But Winnipeg is really good, and if you can acquire a young player like that, um, with a good asset, I mean, at the end of the day, Patrick Laine can score a lot of goals, and there's a lot of things he can do. But that trade, as soon as it was announced, it was 100% a win for the Winnipeg Jets. 100%. They're gonna have they're gonna have Pierre-Luc Dubois for a long time. He's very young. He's very talented, and giving someone like Ehlers more ice time, more of the chances to create offense, and he's absolutely run with it. It's not like he didn't do anything before, but this guy was suppressed a little bit with Patrick Laine there. So win-win situation, and Kyle Dubas has got to do something along the same lines. Um, and being that we're at the midway point, um, considering all the issues that the Leafs are facing right now, the schedule finally caught up to them. They were super tired. Um, they went let's see, between March 20 uh, February. So in February, from February 15th, they played Ottawa, had a night off, played Ottawa back to back, had a night off, Montreal night off, Calgary night off, Calgary, 2 days off, Edmonton, Saturday, Edmonton, Monday, Edmonton, Wednesday, Vancouver, Thursday, Saturday. It's it's been a pretty heavy schedule, and I think it finally caught up with the Leafs considering all the injury issues that they were having. And I'm not I'm not going to blame anything on the goaltending or anything like that. I think the goaltending's been good when the defense has been good, and if you're looking for the goalie to steal you a game every single night, it's not going to happen. Um, People refer to Hellebuck a lot, but Hellebuck has an amazing save percentage against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's 9-0, and his save percentage is 901 against the rest of the North Division. So, all that means is that he's so scared when he plays the Leafs, he brings his absolute best that night because he doesn't want to get shelled and he doesn't want to get pulled. And that's fear. And that's fear based on how good the Toronto Maple Leafs are. He doesn't fear the Vancouver Canucks. He doesn't fear the Montreal Canadiens. He doesn't fear even the Edmonton Oilers. So that's all that means to me is um the Leafs do have good goaltending. You can't be first place in your division with bad goaltending. So if you told me at the beginning of the season, halfway through, the Leafs with Matthews missing multiple games and then playing hurt, Freddie missing games, missing practice, and being hurt, Jack Campbell being hurt for what seems like forever, Wayne Simmons getting hurt, Joel Thornton getting hurt. I mean, the Leafs have lost a significant amount of games to injury, and they're in first place, and they're 2 points up on Winnipeg for first place, and Winnipeg has a game in hand. So even if they win that game, we're tied for first place. If you told me with all those mitigating circumstances that the Leafs are going to be first place, I'd be like, yeah, I take it. at the end of the day, whatever the surrounding circumstances are, your record is your record. And if you've won 18 out of 20, then you must have done something right. It's not like you win 18 out of 20 and it's a fluke. That's not what happens in the NHL. And everybody knows in the NHL you need to have good goaltending to put up good numbers. The Vegas Golden Knights put up good numbers because they have two good goalies. One's hurt. And guess what? Marc-Andre Fleury stepped up. The Edmonton Oilers have made the playoffs one time, once in the last 6 years, and only because Cam Talbot went all world that year. Look at his stats. Look at Cam Talbot's stats that one year. So, you know, from the moment Frederik Andersen showed up in Toronto, the Leafs became a playoff team, and they haven't missed a playoff since. So you can say Freddie's this and Freddie's that, but at the end of the day, the Leafs have made the playoffs every single year, not because, not because of any other reason other than the goaltending. I think I have, where is it? Where is it? The 5 year difference in the Leafs. So 5 years ago, the Leafs line rushes looked like top line Grabner, Peter Holland, Leo Komarov was our top line. Colin Greening, Arcobello, Parenteau was our second line. Winnick, Spalling, Boyce was our our fourth line. And then we had Rich Clune and Frage and Leipzig. That was 5 years ago. Grabner, Holland, Komarov was our top line. Greening, Arcobello, Parenteau. And from that, you go to Thornton, Matthews, Marner, Galchenyuk, Tavares, Nylander, Mikheyev, Kerfoot, Hyman, Engvall, Spezza, Simmons. I mean, that's a huge difference. The Leafs were atrocious 5, 6 years ago. And guess what? Freddie showed up, and every single year you've been in the playoffs. And now you want to say Frederik Andersen is no good? The Leafs made the playoffs every single year because they had an amazing defense? The Alexei Marchenkos, the Roman Polaks, the Martin Marinsons, the Matt Hunwicks, the Ron Hainsey's. You think these guys got you to the playoffs? No. The stellar play of your superstar goalie, who was fourth in Vezina voting, just 3, 4 years ago. He was fourth in Vezina voting. The NHL said this guy's the fourth best goalie in the NHL. And I think just a couple of years ago he was either like seventh or eighth in Vezina voting. So he is clearly a top 10 goalie. And he's playing hurt. And he's grinding through it. And the Leafs are in first place. Jack Campbell's only played 3 games this year. So who got you to the top of the standings? It's not Michael Hutchinson. You saw the hole he dug for himself against the Senators. I mean, if you're a fan online that says, let's trade Frederik Andersen and run with Campbell and Hutch, where is Campbell? Who are you running with? You're going to run with an injured goalie? Is he on the ice? Is he starting games right now? Let's run with Jack Campbell. How can you run with an injured goalie? It's complete madness. It's complete madness. The stuff people say online. Trade Freddie. Let's run with these 2 goalies. You want to run with Hutch? Look what he did against an AHL team. 2 very easy saves, and it went right through him. You want to build $100 million roster, and that's who you want to put in net. That's who's going to get you to the Eastern Conference Finals. You're finally going to win around because Hutch decided to, be all world. Is that what you think is going to happen? It's the Leafs last year in the play-in round versus the Columbus Blue Jackets. In the first 2 games, Frederik Andersen let in 1 goal in the first 2 games of that series. Guess how many games the Leafs won out of those 2 games? They won 1 out of the 2. Why? Because the only game they won was the game Freddie got a shutout. If you need your core to step up and score some goals, Mitch Marner had 0 goals in that series. Step up $11 million. Freddie can't get a shutout and go out there and score goals. You can't win a game 0-0. So all Freddie can do is try to let in the least amount of goals. And in the first 2 games, he let in 1. True, they lost that first game 2-0, but he let in 1. And at the end of the game, they took out their goalie. Freddie Andersen got pulled. And then they scored an empty netter. But Freddie Andersen let in 1 goal in 2 games. And the Leafs only won 1. And that's the game that Freddie got a shutout. And in that game, Tavares scored, Matthews scored, and Riley scored. So there's 3/5 of your core, right? Actually, 4/6 of your core. Freddie showed up, got a shutout. Matthews got a goal. Tavares got a goal. And Riley got a goal. And the 2 players that I haven't mentioned are Marner and Nylander. In that first game, they got shut out. Freddie showed up, only let in 1 goal, but nobody else showed up. So 5 out of 6 missing on the first game, and 2 out of 6 missing on the second game. And throughout the rest of that series, the Leafs were down 3-0 in that game. They come back and win it in overtime. Guess who scored in that game? William Nylander, Zach Hyman, Matthews, Tavares. Again, there's 4 out of the 6. Mitch Marner doesn't show up in any one of those games in Columbus. You want to put blame on somebody? Look at the last 12 playoff games Mitch Marner has played against Columbus and against the Boston Bruins the year before, and look at his stats. Freddie put up a 9-2-2 against Boston in 7 games. He put up a 9-3-6 against Columbus. So you want to blame the goalie, or do you want to blame the guy who didn't show up at all for 12 playoff games? Let's go. Let's move on to Kyle Dubas and see what he says.
Kyle, thanks for the time today. What's your overall assessment of Fred's play through 30 games, or the games he's played in, I guess?
I think with Fred, this is his 5th year with the team now, and I know in going through this before with Steve, I know it's a major topic, but I think if Fred's shown us anything in the 4.5 seasons that he's been with us, it's that he has a tremendous ability to gather himself when he may not be.
And all Kyle Dubas is doing right here is he's stating facts. Everybody has up and downs. There was a 20-game stretch last year Last season, when the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup, during the regular season, there was a 20-game stretch where Andrei Vasilevsky had a 901 save percentage and he was shitting the bed. But then he regained his form because he is talented. He is a good goalie. He's probably the best goalie in the NHL right now. And what you got to do is you got to bank on the skill and you got to bank on his work ethic and just hope, he's going to grind it out and he's going to regain his form. And Freddie has done that. Notoriously, October, November usually isn't his best. But he's been able to put those 2 slow months behind him and put up some extraordinary numbers. I mean, it's proof by being 4th in Vezina voting and 8th in Vezina voting. I mean, when somebody says you're that good, you must have put up some decent stats. And Freddie has up and downs like everybody else, and the team has been up and down in terms of their defense as well.
Playing to the standard that he sets for himself, and I think he's been very open about that. And I think if you go back through each of the seasons, anytime where Fred has found himself in a bit of a rut per se, he's able to pull himself out of it, and that's the expectation of what we'll see from him as we move ahead.
That's right. That's the expectation, is everyone's gonna pull their weight around here. That includes Freddie, and it includes Hyman and Marner and Nylander and Tavares and Matthews. Listen, whatever you're going through, whatever you're dealing with, you're being paid to do a job, and you got to do it.
Well, maybe you disagree with this one, Kyle, but is there to pull out of the rut though? The rut kind of goes back to last season, and I don't know if you see it that way or not, but is this thing a little bit lengthier? And I'm not.
So this reporter says that the rut goes back to last season. I believe Freddie Anderson showed up in the playoffs, put up 1.8 goals against and a 936 save percentage. So this guy says it goes back to last year, but when it mattered most, Freddie showed up. And Freddie put up amazing numbers. Those are great, great numbers. There is no asterisk there. There is no caveat. It doesn't matter who you play. Whether it's the Florida Panthers or the Columbus Blue Jackets, you still have to go out there and execute. And that's what he did. So it's weird to go back to last season.
I'm not saying he's been terrible, but it's a little bit lengthier than maybe you'd hope for at this point, or how do you see that?
Yeah, I would say, Terry, that on that, I mean, I think going back to last season, I don't think early on in the year, and we had stretches of the year where we were really poor defensively, where regardless of who was in net for us, it was a tough place to play.
Tyson Barrie was a
I
huge example, reason why.
Season, I think if you go back to around the same time last year, maybe I have it off because the calendar is tough to follow for the last 12 months or so, but we were in that sort of late February part of the calendar, and Fred had not been playing well, and then on the California trip, I thought he had an exceptional trip, and then coming back home against Tampa, he pulled himself out of it then and it started to string together some excellent performances. And so I have a lot of
that is true
that Fred over time has continually shown us that he's able to find his way out of it, and that he will.
Next up, we'll go to Mark Masters, TSN. Go ahead, Mark.
Kyle, where do you see the biggest opportunity for growth from the group in the second half of the season?
Yeah, I think, Mark, we've got a great opportunity right now, and I think we showed, even in that stretch in Vancouver and the first half of that Winnipeg series, I thought we were playing well. They get some great goaltending from Demko with Vancouver, and then Hellebuck, as we all know, those are high-end goaltenders. They played very well, and coming off that Edmonton series, maybe we did let our foot off the gas a little bit, after having swept them. And I think the things that it goes back to the original availability I had at the beginning of the year, and we had at the beginning of the year, which is a real focus on staying consistent throughout the regular season. And I would be more
That's true.
alarmed if we had played poorly, really poorly in Vancouver and in the first half of the Winnipeg.
Yeah, I mean, this is a results-oriented business, and wins are what you're looking for. But when you look at the first game against Winnipeg, the Leafs outplayed Winnipeg. Their goalie stole them the game, which is fine. It happens. And then the Leafs won the second game, and then they lost the third game. So to me, it's not a huge. To me, there's nothing to be really worried about. I mean, it's the Leafs haven't, like Kyle Dubas just said, the Leafs haven't been outplayed so badly. They outplayed Winnipeg. Their goalie was just, to me it looks like there was horseshoes up his ass. I mean, Nylander gets a shot, it goes up in the air, he tips it into the back of the net, it hits the crossbar. Some of the most weird stuff. And I tweeted it out and I said, I go, as many chances as Winnipeg gives up, the dam's gonna break. And I could show you text messages between me and my brother, and I said, and I think it was 2-1 or 2-2 or something like that, and I told him, I go, this is gonna be easily a 4-3 game, and the Leafs are gonna win. And he goes, you expect that many goals in the third period? And I said, yeah, when that dam breaks. And there you go. It's, Connor Hellebuck played great. But at the end of the day, you can't continually give up that many chances and expect not to get scored on. And the Leafs have a pretty potent offense. And they eventually started scoring.
Series, but I thought we did play well. And I think it's our ability to stick with that and continue to grow as a group as we did through February and the early part of March. That is a great opportunity for growth. If you go back, I mean, I do this a lot and try to study other teams and where they're at in their seasons and how they've gone through them. If you go back to last season, just as an example, and you look at the teams that were in that Final Four, whether it's Tampa, the Islanders, Dallas, Vegas, they all had really bad stretches of their season as well, where they had, whether it was winning 3 of 11 or 12 games or losing 7 or 8 in a row. And I think the great teams find a way to stop the bleeding and pull themselves out and use those as an opportunity to grow and improve and get better. And so that's what I'm looking at now, Mark, from our group.
A general question of just about the game right now. There's been a couple fights in the North Division that have resulted in injuries of late. What's your just general feel of the role fighting has in today's game?
Yeah, I mean, you never like to see anybody hurt, regardless of how it happens. I think with there being so much familiarity between the clubs, Mark, that you're going to have more and more instances where tempers flare, whether it's between teams or between teams and officials. Everybody's seeing each other so often. And I think that leads to an increased focus on physicality and just the temperance part of it kind of flaring a little bit and getting off the rails. And I think that's where it goes. But
people want to talk about fighting all they want, but at the end of the day,
over the years,
can't take it out of the game.
About what toughness truly is and represents. And I don't necessarily think it has to do with just fighting. I think it's how you play, how hard you play, how you compete for loose pucks in space, and that's how we focus on it, not so much on the fighting part.
Next up, we'll go to Kevin McGran, Toronto Star. Go ahead, Kevin.
Good answer.
Hi, Kyle. This may be more of a Marlies question than a Leafs question, but you've managed to make a couple of trades in the season in which people tell us it's hard to make trades. Can you sort of give the plan for what you think is going to happen with Alex Galchenyuk and whether he has a chance to make your roster this year, and also go through the logic of the...
Man, I am so excited about Alex Galchenyuk. I know, adding Joe Thornton there on the left side and having Hyman, these are good players, no doubt. I love everything Zach Hyman brings to the Toronto Maple Leafs. If I could if I could take his work ethic and clone it and put it inside a guy like Mitch Marner, I'd be the happiest person in the history of the planet. And the Leafs would be one of the most dominant teams in the NHL. But I think a guy like Galchenyuk I mean, this guy scored 30 goals in the NHL as a 19-year-old. It's not, and that kind of talent is exciting. I don't think he's ever had the chance to play with a Matthews or a Tavares or a Nylander or a Marner. And if the Leafs treat him well and they've given him tons of time and he's worked with the skills coaches on the ice and they've let him take his time, just easing into the organization. And then I I took some time and I watched the games that he played with the Marlies. And when he started scoring, I noticed the types of goals he was scoring. And, you know, this guy is a 19, 20-year-old. I don't know if you guys remember. You guys can look at go back and look at his highlights. This is the type of guy who used to set up on the power play on either side, and he used to rip one-timers. Now, you know, Matthews only does one-timers on one side of the ice, and when he's on the other side, he's only ripping wrist shots. Either way, they're lethal, but you know, if you can set up Matthews on one side and this guy on the other side, if for whatever reason he can get it, you know, hopefully he gets a scoring touch back and his talent level is that he can score, and he showed it with the games with the Marlies once he did start scoring. I don't think the Leafs have put a left winger with as much talent as this kid has on either one of the top two lines. So this is no slight against like Joe Thornton. I know he's really good, and Hyman is great, but just the pure goal scoring ability that Galchenyuk has, and you know, he's proven he can score 30 goals in the NHL. I think this may be, in terms of talent, I mean, like, you know, in an ideal world, in the perfect scenario, the Leafs make a trade for like a Nick Foligno or something like that, and he becomes your top line left winger with Matthews and Marner. Galchenyuk plays with, I mean, Galchenyuk at this point is going to give you more than what Jimmy Vesey's given you, and Jimmy Vesey's gone on waivers to Vancouver. And, you know, Jimmy Vesey, I think, scored 5 goals with the Toronto Maple Leafs this season, and he started with Tavares and Nylander. But he couldn't get the job done at the end of the day. And, you know, worst comes to worst, Galchenyuk has speed, he has scoring ability, and he has talent. So you put him there. At worst, he's going to be Jimmy Vesey. So it's not like the Leafs lost anything there. But if he can play like his old self and get his head right, if you can trade for a guy like a Nick Foligno or something like that, where he's your top line left winger, Galchenyuk figures it out on the second line with Tavares and Nylander, and then Hyman's playing on the third line with Mikheyev and Kerfoot. Probably Kerfoot's not going to be there at that point. To make trades, you got to move out salary, so Engvall may be there, and then you got Thornton, Spezza, and Simmons as your fourth line. I mean, to me, that's an ideal world. I don't need my fourth line to do so much, but you know, a fourth line with a playmaker like Joe Thornton, a playmaker like Jason Spezza, you know, a grinder like Wayne Simmons, getting the puck down low, cycling the puck, creating opportunities, and Joe Thornton has already shown that he's so good at holding the puck and dishing it off at the right time. If they can chip in a few goals now and then, and for sure they're going to get power play, first power play, second power play time as well. That's an ideal scenario. That's a deep, deep team. And I hope that's the way things go during at this year's trade deadline, where the Leafs can acquire a left winger, and then Galchenyuk plays on the second line, and Hyman moves to that third line, and they become a dominant checking third line that can chip in goals. I mean, that's a deep team you take into the playoffs, and then expanded rosters, no salary cap in the playoffs. You got guys like Nick Robertson, Sandin Liljegren, Adam Brooks, Kenny Agostino. There's a lot of guys there that give the Leafs even more depth. So I'm super excited about Galchenyuk. I think he could really solidify this lineup and allow the Leafs to really focus on trading for a left winger for that top line.
So with Alex, it's a bit of convenient. It was convenient because he was still in Ottawa, so we didn't have to deal with the 14-day quarantine that every person coming into Canada has to deal with right now. But as it pertains to roster space and so on and so forth, it was just really convenient that we could have him drive from Ottawa, test a couple times, and be a part of our group. And in discussions with Alex and with Pat Brisson, his agent, it was clear that we needed to kind of get into a situation where we could reset Alex, start to build him back up. He was obviously a player that had a great stretch in his early 20s and has now bounced around for a few teams. So what we wanted to do was stabilize him, get him working with our development staff, and then get him in and rolling with games with the Marlies. And it was just really fortunate how it all worked out. Where the Marlies were at that time, they had a lot of games coming up, the fact that he was already in Canada, and we just saw it as a chance to add to our forward depth and try to work with Alex and allow our development staff and Greg Moore and the Marlies work with Alex and attempt to get him on track. And in the reports from, I watch all the games, but more importantly, the reports from Greg and the Marlies.
Yeah, I think this is one aspect of the Toronto Maple Leafs that Leaf fans don't really give a lot of praise for. This is a world-class organization. From their very modern analytics department to their young GM, they have people in terms of skills development that work with guys like Jason Spezza. Like Jason Spezza at his age doesn't need skills development, but he comes onto the ice in optional skates and works with guys like Nick Antropov and people like Nick Antropov, Barb Underhill, like the Leafs are providing all the tools. They have a state-of-the-art practice facility where people can work out, they can skate on different pads of ice. And then, they have a AHL team that's in the same town. They have a coach that's running the same systems as this coach. And this is what a world-class organization looks like. When I see what's going on in Buffalo right now, and, people get mad and upset over losses, and they want to say, fire this guy and trade this guy. When there is no continuity, when there's 5 or 6 coaching changes in a short period of time, there's no continuity to build any sort of culture or identity for a team. And it happened in Toronto for a very long time. This fan base is so rabid that they want to fire and trade everybody. They expect the Leafs to win every single night. And it's just not going to happen sometimes. Look, you definitely can't win every single game. But firing people, they fire the GM, fire the coach, fire the GM. And then, you hire a coach and then you fire the GM and the GM wants to have his own coach. So that coach gets fired and another guy comes in. There's no continuity. People need to play a system for seasons over seasons till they can really get an identity and feel what they want to do. And when you look at a team like the Buffalo Sabres, and they have, Casey Middlestad and, Rasmus Dahlin, and these are talented kids that did, like, Rasmus Dahlin was supposed to be the next Erik Karlsson. What happened to Rasmus Dahlin? Well, what happened was his growth got stunted. Rasmus Dahlin is nothing special in the NHL. Casey Middlestad is nothing special in the NHL. Guys like Zach Bogosian went there and his career almost died. Ryan O'Reilly went there and his career almost died. Regardless of what the age is, regardless of what the skill level is, regardless of a player's position is on the ice, you got to have a whole system around these guys that cultivates winning. It cultivates skills development and all these other things. And skills development isn't just on the ice; it's off the ice too. And the Leafs got I think his name is Anthony Balza. Like, he's off the ice working with these guys, telling them what to eat, doing all that stuff. And I think it rubs off, because look what Austin Matthews did over the off season. He went and got genetic testing done, and they told him, what he needs to do, what workouts are good for him, what his body responds to, what he should be eating, what he should not be eating. Matthews, at his young age, instead of doing it later in his career and prolonging his career, he did it at a young age and said, I'm going to have a long career and I'm going to do everything for my body that's correct. And I think that stuff like that only happens when you have, like, the Leafs sent Peloton bikes to, like, any player that wanted it. And you saw it in the FaceTime interviews that Justin Hall was doing in the offseason with his teammates, and they were talking. It's like, were you on the Peloton today? Were you on the Peloton? He's like, I did the Peloton, this, that. And they're sending their metrics in and out of the organization, and the organization telling them what they're doing. Are they doing good? Should they increase something, decrease something? And that's what a world-class organization does. You got to support these guys at every level and every step out of the way. And it's not just, you're Austin Matthews. You don't need a skating coach. You don't need a shooting coach. You don't need this. Yes, they do. All the players need it. And Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton being out for every single voluntary skate working with skills development is proof. Rest in peace to Ralph Kruger.
Staff and from our development staff here, he's been outstanding in terms of his work ethic, commitment, his attitude, and watching the games, he's obviously played quite well. We just want to continue to have him build up his confidence and improve his form. And certainly I think that that in time he'll get an opportunity. And then on the secondary trade there last week of Mikko Lehtinen to Columbus for Vini Vivalainen, it was just a situation where Mikko had come over here clearly with the intention of playing in the NHL, and he'd gotten into, I think it was 9 or 10 of our first 25, 26 games, and wanted to do right by him a little bit, and wanting to give him a chance where we had felt our defense was playing well.
Another example of a world-class organization. Mikko Lehtinen could have chosen. He had his choice between tons and tons of different teams. More than half the NHL wanted to sign this guy, but he chose Toronto. And Toronto said, okay, for whatever reason, you're not going to get to play right now. So what did they do? They moved him. And then they moved him, and then they added to their goaltending depth with a goaltender that they liked in the draft in 2016, I believe it was. They looked at this guy, they really liked him, they were high on him. So that's a world-class organization. That's an organization saying, listen, this guy chose us over everybody else. He wants to play in the NHL. Unfortunately, he's not going to get that chance in Toronto. So let's send him somewhere else and add to the depth of somewhere else that we need. Right now, the Marlies goalies are getting jerked around, and guys like Joseph Woll, his development is getting stunted because he's on the taxi squad for the Toronto Maple Leafs, not playing a lot of games for the Marlies. So, you pick up this goalie, he's going to start playing with the Marlies, or he's going to be on the taxi squad. Either way, it's flexibility.
We've also got other D, Sandin coming back healthy. Liljegren has played extremely well for the Marlies and been in the taxi squad, plus Rosen, Marincin, Hollowell, and others that have played well.
Yeah.
That, rather than just be committed to give one person those opportunities when guys...
Liljegren has looked really good in the AHL this year. I'm not going to lie. I'm surprised. He's shooting so much more.
Best to have to work with Mikko and his group and find a solution for him so that he can try to accomplish his dream that he set out when he came over here from Jokerit. So our goal was to try to return a goaltender. It's been a situation this year where Joe Wall has had to, in order to abide by the NHL's rules on available goaltenders, Joe Wall's development has kind of been squeezed a little bit. He's only been able to play one game because we've had to bring him with us to serve as our number 3, especially with Campbell being in and out of the lineup.
Facts.
Fred was injured as well. So we felt getting a depth goaltender was important, and our staff, particularly
World-class organizations, understand that you got to constantly build and do whatever you can to shore up whatever holes you have in your organization. And so all of a sudden, Kyle Dubas is sitting there and he's like, man, Joseph Wall, he's on the taxi squad and he's practicing as a third goalie, and he's not getting a lot of games with the AHL, but the Marlies need a goalie too, and they're signing, players to short-term contracts to play goalie, and then they're like, this is not how you run an organization. We need to solidify the goaltending position, and boom, Mikko Lehtinen, who's not playing games, is now a goalie who's going to play for the Marlies. Identify your problem, find a solution.
The staff have been big fans of Vini for a long time, and he's been an excellent goaltender in Finland and international play, and to start his career in Cleveland last season. So we're excited to have him. He's in quarantine.
They're a big fan of this guy.
14, so he'll get out and rolling, and we'll incorporate him into the program.
Next up, we'll go to Josh Clipperton, Canadian Press. Go ahead, Josh.
Hey, Kyle. Your vision for this team and its roster construction came under a lot of fire, was dissected a lot from a lot of angles.
Dissected. And how was it dissected? You can't spend $40 million on forwards and expect to be good. Well, not only did he spend $40 million on 4 forwards, he added depth on forward, this man. He made the defense better by getting TJ Brody and Zach Bogosian, still with Sandin Liljegren waiting in the wings. And then he went and added depth on goaltending.
For this season.
And where is this team? Number 1 in the
March.
standings.
You guys have had some great goaltending opponents, and before the last 2 games. Do you feel at all vindicated in how the team has shown it can perform?
I wouldn't say vindicated, Josh. I regardless of what's being said about the team or me outside the group, I think I put a lot of
humble
pressure on myself
as fuck.
To continue to help with Shanny and with Sheldon and with Brandon Pridham and Lawrence and our group here, continue to build.
You see how he names multiple people in the organization. He's like Brandon Pridham, who's a cap genius, who helped come up with the cap in the first place. It's like, we got to take advantage of all the information that we have.
Close to where
it's not just me.
Can be in time. So
it's a team.
And that's sort of the part that drives us and drives me is that I think we've had really good stretches this year, but there have been at times when I think that I haven't done a good enough job whatsoever in helping the team, and whether that's what drives me or what pushes me in the group to get better, then that's fine. But certainly not vindicated by good stretches in the regular season. I think an entire regular season of great results and the results that we expect would be one thing, and then that fueling playoff success would be another. But until
playoff success is all that matters.
Is high performance sustained year after year, and I think only after that time.
Think about it. The Leafs got Matthews, Tavares, Marner, Nylander. I'm not really gonna talk about Spezza, Thornton, Simmons. I don't know how many years more these guys have. But they have Hyman, Nylander, Marner, Tavares, Matthews. They have Riley, who's young. They have a good core that's going to be around for a while. And then above that, you got Sandin, Liljegren, Amarov, Hollander, Nick Robertson. You got a bunch of guys that are going to come into this team on cheap entry-level deals. And they're all highly talented, offensive guys. And I'm, I'm enjoying now. And this season has been super fun. The Canadian division has been lots of fun to watch. You never know what's going to happen on a nightly basis. I mean, there's no way you can predict what's going to happen on a nightly basis. I mean, Edmonton getting shut out almost 3 games in a row, and then Vancouver beating the Leafs two games, and then Ottawa having some crazy nights here and there. They came back on the Leafs. They've beat teams like Montreal. You never know what's going to happen. It's fun hockey because it's just Canadians versus Canadians, and I love that kind of competition. I could care less what Arizona's doing. I could care less what the Rangers are doing. I could care less what the Philadelphia Flyers are doing. None of that matters to me. The only time, what's going on in the States is going to matter to me is when the playoff starts. And if it's going to be, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, or Boston, whatever, first round, that's interesting. Then I'll pay attention to it. But right now, the regular season means nothing to me. The Canadian division is very enthralling.
Years on, would I ever feel that any sort of vindication, even still be trying to drive to continue that as long as we can. But I certainly feel that any criticisms are warranted until we reach that point, and I don't take them personally at all.
And you've made big trades in junior and some in the NHL. This season is so different. We got a North Division team guaranteed in the conference final. No Tampa, no Boston. How do you know when to quote unquote go for it, and how do you balance all that with prospects?
Good question.
And, the way this season is and the opportunity.
Yeah, I think the team tells you that, Josh, and how they respond. I think especially this will be a great stretch because the team will show how they respond when things aren't going perfectly. It's great. It's great when you wake up every day and you're winning. And
the team's gonna let you know.
It's easy, but when you start to stumble a little bit, maybe you don't get the results that you want as consistently as you have. I think it's a great opportunity for growth. And as I mentioned in opening, the great teams are the teams that have great seasons and go on great runs. They all deal with these types of stretches.
True.
And they deal with them very, very well. They use them to
Facts.
fuel better performance and better form and better results as it goes on. And that's what I'm looking for now. And if our group can do that in combination of what they showed at the beginning of the year, I think the onus will be on me to do everything within reason to improve the group.
Next up, we'll go to Chris.
Once the team steps up,
Ahead, Chris.
the onus, it falls on him.
With an understanding that the cap situation can change daily, I'm just wondering how much room or flexibility you think you have now and will have before April 12th to add salary.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think certainly, the cap situation, not only for us, but if you look at it for, I think 2/3 of the team in the league is very tight. So I'm very, very fortunate here to have Brandon Pridham on the staff, and he and I talk for hours a day of different things that we can do and will do and are attempting to accomplish as we go through it. And I just think we're going to have to be creative, and we're going to have to find ways any way we can to improve the team now and in the future, knowing that the salary cap is going to be stagnant, not only now in the season, Chris, but also in future years here.
That's right.
I think that's where Brandon's value is even more immense than usual, or at times like this, because he not only has a great understanding of our situation, but of other situations, and can come up with different ideas, and we can bounce things off one another before we go to other clubs in the marketplace and try to find a way to improve the team with limited cap space.
Okay, and was putting Jimmy Vesey on waivers today, is that a cap-related move, or is there something else at play there?
I think a couple
Flexibility.
because of what happened at the beginning of the year. So we had put a bunch of the guys who've now kind of comprised our fourth line or third line on waivers or sent them down. And that allowed what I thought at the beginning of the year was a really good competition. So even when guys were producing, whether it was Adam Brooks or Patan or Travis Boyd, Joey Anderson, VC Spezza, the different players who played in those roles, they were still coming in and out of the lineup. And I thought that competition really fueled great performance from those players. And really, when Campbell came off long-term injured reserve and back onto the roster, but now has been sort of day-to-day here, since the game in Edmonton, it's sort of limited what we can do in terms of players coming on and off, especially because we don't have much waiver flexibility with those guys on the lower end of our roster. They've gone past that 10-game threshold long ago. And so one of the things we're looking to do is to increase our flexibility on roster, but also as Campbell gets closer to return and Simmons gets closer to return, we do have to do some juggling with the cap situation.
Next up, we'll go to Jonas Siegel, The Athletic. Go ahead, Jonas.
Hey, Kyle, will the circumstances of this year in particular lead you to be more aggressive ahead of the deadline than you might be in a normal season?
I think normally, Jonas, that we've going back on the two deadlines now, we've tried to act as early as possible. I think with the Muzzin trade and then Campbell and Clifford last year, those are about the same day off the top of my head, sort of early February. They were 3 weeks or 4 weeks away from the deadline, and right now we sit just under 4 weeks away from the deadline. I think given the quarantine that's in place right now, 14 days, where the player's going to come in and the player's going to come in and sit for 14 days in their hotel and then join the club, we're going to be in a tougher spot to certainly get as much out of it as we can. And if you look at the schedule where it goes, we're April 12th as the deadline, and then if you go the 2 weeks beyond that, you're April 27th, 28th before they get out of their hotel, and then they're only with the team for, I think it's like 6 games and 10 days or something like that. So certainly provides an incentive to try to make the moves earlier. It takes two to make that happen, though. So we'll see, Jonas, but certainly for us, the sooner we can get a player in here through the quarantine and then integrate them into our program systems-wise and what we're about, the better for them and for us.
And then as far as goaltending, do you feel like you're kind of set there with what you've got?
I think when healthy and when everyone is up and rolling, I think it's a great tandem. And Hutch has come in and given us good minutes. I think Sunday night was not a great night for anybody on the team, but we've been happy. I was happy with how Joe Wall played for the Marlies on Friday. Look forward to him getting more games, but. I've got a lot of belief in both Fred and Jack Campbell and Hutch when he's in. So we'll look to continue to get everybody healthy and rolling, and we'll go from there.
Next up, we'll go to Mike Zeisberger, NHL.com. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, Kyle. Thank you very much for doing this. You talked about the ebbs and flows of a season. When you look at that 3 games in Edmonton, 3 wins from 3 different goalies, 2 wins without Austin Matthews. Have you been around this team where they put together a better, complete 3 games in a row? And can that act as kind of like, you put that up and tell the guys, look, you bought in, this is what we can do, especially against the opponent that you played?
I certainly think there's something to what you're saying, Mike, big time. That was going into that series. Edmonton had, I forget exactly what it was, but it was a 3-game series where Edmonton was, you would know exactly. I think they were 4 points behind us or 6 points or whatever it was. They had come off of their rough stretch of the season. I think they had won 11 of 13 heading into that against us, and so it's set up for these very. They kind of feel like in baseball, right? When you get into the July and August, and you've got the first and second place team in these series, which I think have been one of the great parts of the season, where the big swings can happen. And I thought it showed what we're capable of when we're, I think, both offensively, defensively, and in net. And it certainly serves as an example of what we can be. Now the key is doing that as often as possible, and not just when you're concerned about an elite offensive team and with two of the best players in the game, not just in those situations, but against every team that we play. And so I think it does serve as a great example of what we can be when we're at our best. Now it's a matter of doing that as often as possible.
You and Sheldon had talked about, through the off season and that, to focus on team defense, keeping guys to the outside and that. In general, through the first half of the season, can you talk a little bit about your assessment of how guys have bought in and how the improvements that you have made in that respect?
Yeah, I think, just in terms of where we're at in general in that regard, whether it's, certainly I think the quality of chances that we're giving up or the number of goals, notwithstanding, I mean, we're coming off back-to-back games where we certainly gave up more than we want to in terms of goals and chances. But I think we have been generally happy with the improvements that we've made in that realm. And especially, I think, the commitment from our absolute best offensive players to the defensive side and sort of leading the way. I think the way that we always looked at it is if those players can excel, in all three zones of the rink, it forces everybody else on your team to do the same. And I think we've been quite happy with that, Mike. And I think we still have a lot of room where we can get better in it, though, and that's what we'll be looking for in the second half.
Next up, we'll go to Lance Hornby, Toronto Sun. Go ahead, Lance.
Hey, Kyle. Now that you have a little bit of data, can you talk about maybe adding depth in the second half regards to the Marlies? Robertson, Galchenyuk, Sandin are some names, and where might they fit in as you go forward?
Sorry, Lance. The first part of your question cut out. I didn't.
You have a little bit of data now on some of the
Yeah, I think that with those depth type players that we've got there, and then we'll have more guys coming over from Europe as their season ends. Okay, for example, Semyon Dargachintsev, he was in the KHL with Torpedo this year. He's in day 4 or 5 of his quarantine after their season ended. He had a really good season for them.
It'll be interesting for the European players to come over and play for the Marlies this year. Very interesting.
We're happy with him, and we'll have more of our others, whether it's Hollander, Mulligan, come over once their seasons are done, Lance. So I think as we get deeper into the year, the competition will increase, and we've had strong performances from guys on the Marlies as well, whether it's Galchenyuk, Barabanov obviously had a great couple of games, and that was the intention to get him down there playing in big minutes. But we feel good about the depth and where our prospect pool is at right now. In terms of being able to challenge guys on the roster and push guys on the roster. And so we're happy with that. And I think especially as the Marlies have gotten playing and, they're through 13 games or so now, or 14 games now, we feel good about where that's at and the improvements that those players have shown under Greg's leadership with them.
You brought in veterans exactly for a moment like this, really, the off season with Simmons and Thornton and such. How do you feel they've done so far?
They've been, I don't know if you could hear Joe in the hallway, but he doesn't really take many days off, and his attitude and disposition doesn't change day to day. He's sort of seen it all in his time in the league. And I think they've brought a lot of spirit to the group. I would say all of the players acquired in the off season have really improved the spirit of the team. And, unlike in previous seasons where you go through a bit of a stretch where it's not going well and you feel the group start to sag, I haven't felt that right now. And I think that guys like Joe with Wayne getting closer to his return, whether it's this week or next week, they add a lot to the group. And as I think we talked about last year at the end of the year and then through the off season and in the season opening media, that's sort of been an area that has been a focus for us. And, whether it's been adding Muzzin and Clifford and Campbell, but certainly this offseason again with Brody, Thornton, Simmons, and Bogosian, I do think that that's a real important part of helping the team chemistry and the culture and environment of the group. And those guys don't change day to day, and they've added a lot to us so far.
Next up, we'll go to David Alter of the Hockey News. Go ahead, David.
Hey, Kyle. Zach Hyman's had a quite versatile season for you guys. I'm just curious as to if there's been any talks with his immediate or long-term future with the club. And I guess the second part of that is how much has the expansion draft played any sort of role in trying to figure out things beyond, I guess, for this season for acquiring guys, but beyond the season as well?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I mean, Zach. I mean, in terms of his versatility, I don't disagree with you too much. But the one part I would disagree is that
The Swiss Army knife, Zach Hyman.
Time he arrived here in May or June of 2015, that he's brought in every single day. His work ethic and leadership and character. It's never been a question for us, and he can
Never
go up and down the lineup and be as effective on that line like he was in Edmonton with Mikheyev and Engvall as he is with Austin and Mitch, and it doesn't impact Zach day to day regardless of who he's playing with or where in the lineup, whether he's on the power play or not. He comes and works and is an outstanding leader for us.
See, I think ideally, with the scoring touch that Nick Robertson has and the work ethic that he has, I think his work ethic is very much similar to Zach Hyman. So the fact that he can play down low behind the net, he can grind it out, he can play the cycle game, and he can rip shots on net. I think him and Hyman, with the perfect center, can make one of the most dominant third lines in the NHL. And dominant not just by checking. I'm talking about filling the net. These guys are great at forechecking. These guys are great at putting pucks in the net. They get to the dirty areas. I think Nick Robertson and Zach Hyman are going to be a marriage made in heaven for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And, it all depends on who that center is going to be. Whether it's Engvall, it could be Adam Brooks. There's a lot of options there. And it's... For me, I'm excited to see what Nick Robertson can do in the NHL on a permanent spot, and they might have to use him starting as of next year if they want to make any moves. Alex Kerfoot, there's a lot of guys that have to be moved, and Barabanov's contract is up. I don't know how much he's going to re-sign for. Ilya Mikheyev's got one more year, and then Zach Hyman has to get re-signed. So. Freddie Anderson's contract is up. If these guys, if Freddie Anderson's going to sign the gold standard right now with Binnington and Markstrom signing 6x6, that's $1 million out of the cap that's going to be allotted to Freddie Anderson. If Hyman's going to go for Kadri's 4.5x6, I can't wait for Nick Robertson and Galchenyuk to be a permanent part of this team.
With regards to his future, I'm not gonna comment on he or any of the pending free agents, restricted or unrestricted. I just don't think it's productive at this time to do so. And with regards to the expansion draft, I think every team in the league knows that they face it. We've tried to prepare ourselves as much as possible for the expansion draft, and Brandon and I will go through it consistently and try to get a read from Seattle, who they may be keying in on, and how we can sort of mitigate the damage that's done with that. But we're happy to welcome them into the league, and losing a player from your group is part of that business. So we'll sort our way through it and get through it as we do with everything else, and look forward to having Seattle in the league next year.
Next up, we'll go to Luke Fox, Sportsnet. Go ahead, Luke.
Hi, Kyle. If you are able to add to the group in the next few weeks, what's your greatest area of need?
I think we'll look at everything, Luke. I don't go in transfixed on any one area in particular, but I do think that if we can, we'll try to improve at any position that's possible. Some on our team, like defense and goaltending, are a little bit more stable. In the summer we had to move out some forwards that were good forwards for us in order to add on the back end, and thus we feel like that's an area where we may want to look at a little bit more. But I'm not precluding anything at this point. But I'd say most of the conversations are focused on forwards right now.
And I'm also just curious why you decided to welcome Amazon's cameras in with the group and be part of the.
He's right. The Leafs goaltending situation right now is pretty pretty solidified, and so is their defense. There's nobody out there right now that you can go and trade for that's better than Freddie Anderson, or has a better track record than Freddie Anderson. So the Leafs goaltending position is what it is. The defense is what it is. So why not try to get that left winger? Why not solidify the other side of the lineup? Because, you have Zach Hyman, you have Marner, and you have Nylander, and that's one side of the lineup solidified. But top line left wing, second left wing, and Mikheyev's third line left wing, you need to solidify it. You got to do whatever you got to do.
This all or nothing series, it's quite a little groundbreaking thing for an NHL team.
Well, the league had come to us last year, and I had watched, in particular, I'd watched the seasons that followed the English Premier League teams. So there's Manchester City. I watched that one with a special interest for sure, and that was my first introduction to the series. And then I have friends who worked on were with the Philadelphia Eagles as they went through it, so I had a bit of an idea. And then Steve Mayer from the NHL approached us last year about it, and we declined to do it, and then came back again after the summer about wanting to do it. And I think the way that we view it is it's us being a good partner in the league to get Amazon involved, and then individually as a team, I think.
Being a good partner in the league. Basically, the NHL told the Leafs, listen, we need to make money. They're going to pay us. They're going to air this, and we need to create revenue. So the Leafs said, I guess.
I think the media and the fans, it's a good opportunity to see the way that things actually operate behind the scenes.
So he initially says, we declined the idea. It's too much going on in the pandemic, and you want these guys to be around the team, and with the COVID and quarantine and all these other stupid things going on. But the NHL said, we need revenue, so be a good partner.
Here, day to day, and a good look into what we're really truly about, more than just the 3 hours that you see us at game time, or the different. I know it's a different world in terms of media availabilities, and you all are usually in the locker room and such, but I think it just gives us a chance to show what we're about and be a good partner with the league and to the other teams by doing this.
Absolutely.
Next up, we'll go to Joshua Cloak, The Athletic. Go ahead, Josh.
Kyle, it's been a strange year for prospect development. I'm just curious if there's something that you and Stefan and Scott have done this season that you think really benefited your prospects.
That's a good question, Josh. I would say that we're most thankful in this regard to the various teams that have had our prospects on them in Europe, as they've been outstanding to deal with in terms of access and video and giving us feedback. So you can go all the way through the list of, and I know you cover that pretty closely, whether it's been Ufa or Asat or Ukrit in Finland or Luleå, like they've been outstanding to deal with when they really don't have to be. And I know they're focused on their own season, and they don't want
good for them.
An NHL team that
professionals
start for 3 months, like I'm talking about September, October, November, December, where you've got this extra focus on your prospects that are playing because it's the only hockey on. But so I think a lot of the credit has to go to them. In the off season, I think the development staff that was here, with Daryl Belfry,
world-class organization,
Barb Underhill, Randy Milani, Nick Antropov, Denver Manderson, they were sort of in the building every day with our development staff, and because there was really nothing to do, and we had to operate within certain rules and restrictions, but they were able to do just some great one-on-one work. And then Scott and Stefan were able to really handle the taking over of the relationships with the teams that our players were developing with. And we have Will Sibley as a part of our staff, and he's just been outstanding at connecting it all together. So it's given us a chance to have to adapt and not become too complacent in what we do with development. And I don't want to get too deep into the way that we actually do it and run it, but I've been really happy with the job that
World-class
staff
organizations
that was here in the
don't
summer
want to
have
get complacent.
aggressively have done in that regard.
Don't want to
Would you
get
consider
complacent.
trading a top prospect this year to improve your team?
Yes.
As short, as concise, and as to the point I've ever seen this man. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
All right, we'll take 3 more here with LeBrun, Tracos, and Magello. First up, we'll go to Pierre LeBrun. Go ahead.
Pierre LeBrun from Hearst, Ontario. Kyle, can I ask you whether
Pierre LeBrun is a joker.
is a rental player a priority for you guys given the cap implications past this year, or could a hockey deal work if ultimately it's the better fit and you just worry about it later in the summer?
I think we would look at everything. Certainly, knowing that the cap is going to stay the same here, anything that's added that has an obligation, and usually you put a premium on getting a player that has future years, and that's what we, with Muzzin and Campbell, that's what we've done. It's a little bit more complex this year, knowing that very likely it's going to be at 81.5 again, the cap, and so anything that we take from next year's allotment, it impacts a number of different things, as you can well imagine. So, it's a rare time where probably a rental is a better fit. That said, if it's something that we feel can improve our team long term, we'll find a way to make it work and figure it out, whether it's a pure hockey trade or having to do something else to offset it.
Go on Cap Friendly. Look at all the players that are UFAs at the end of the season. You'll see Nick's names like Mikael Granlund, Nick Foligno, Eric Stahl, and Alex Iafallo. There's a lot of names out there, but these are the names the Leafs are going after. I think right now, I know The Athletic wrote an article about, in an ideal world, the Leafs would try to go and get someone like Adrian Kempe away from Los Angeles. But Alex Iafallo right now, playing on the top line with Anze Kopitar, is having such a good season. And playing with that kind of talent, playing with players of that talent level, has shown he can do a lot, and he's a big size guy, and his work ethic is great, and it's one of those names that's not really sexy but can make a real impact on the Leafs. So
Thanks, Kyle.
Next up, we'll go to Michael Tracos.
pending UFAs.
Hey Kyle, thanks for doing this. I just wanted to kind of play off that whole All or Nothing documentary. No pressure there for you guys, but is that the expectation for this team? Basically win a Stanley Cup or bust? And is that realistic for a team that is yet to win
One of the
a playoff round,
stupidest
in the
questions.
last, several years now?
Yeah, I don't know, Mike, that the title of the series is really the be all and end all for where we're at as a team. I think as I had said earlier, and then and certainly before the season, where we're at right now is we're looking to be a team that performs a high level of performance year in and year out, and that starts in the regular season with being a top regular season club and letting the regular season build our habits going into the playoffs. And we feel that if we do that consistently year in and year out, that will lead us to our ultimate goal, which is to win.
See, that's a very important mindset. When he says we want to be consistently good in the regular season, but not have that be our badge of honor. We want to be great in the regular season and use those habits that we create from those good results to drive us in the playoffs is the perfect way to put it. And it comes through consistency. Consistency as being a top regular season team year after year. Look at the Washington Capitals. Top regular season team year after year. Never made it outside the second round. And the one year they did make it outside the second round in 14 years, they won the Stanley Cup. So it really, you got to be a good regular season. You got to be a perennial top team in the NHL before you can really start to do some damage in the playoffs, because all you're doing is it's like clockwork. The season starts, you're great all the time. You win more than you lose, and you're in top of the NHL more often than not. So it's, once winning in the regular season becomes clockwork, then you start making noise in the playoffs.
It's so hard in any sport to look at it and say that it's X or bust. So I know there's a lot of talk about winning a playoff round or bust, or winning the Stanley Cup or bust, but I don't.
It's
I
stupid
think those
talk.
can be very day-to-day type endeavors, and I think especially in this role, it has to be more long-term, and you can't get caught up in how the short-run results impact that. And it's about trying to build a program that can be a team that has a high level of performance every single year, and that's really the goal from my end. I know that people on the outside and media and others, and I totally understand why, have something in mind for what they expect from the group, and that's part of doing the job here, and I completely understand that and accept it. But for me in this position, my focus has to be on the long run and building a program that can reach our objective.
Just as a follow-up, how much attention are you paying to the teams outside the North Division, and how difficult is it going to be at the trade deadline to determine if you guys are good enough to hang with the Tampas or the Vegases or the Islanders or Carolina or whatever might come out around the corner when you haven't played them this year?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that I think you can only, in terms of competition where your team is at, I think building it to if you finish in the final, if you get into the Final Four, is probably, it's not the way that we will do it. I think we're very
No, it's not the way you do it at all. You can't build your team to play against a certain team. What if you never get there and you never play that certain team?
around the league. I certainly just personally felt early in the year that you get so transfixed on your division and the race night in and night out.
I'm
So,
transfixed on the North Division. I can't watch nothing else.
make sure that I was keeping a good pulse in the league. Our R&D department actually set me a schedule of how to watch every week so that I would see every team enough and stay in tune with the other teams enough. So we're fortunate to have
That's
them.
crazy.
But I would certainly agree that there is a pull to watch your division much more.
That
because
is
of the
nuts.
way it
They
impacts
made
the
him a
standings.
schedule of how to watch.
To answer your second question in terms of our
Other
focus
teams.
and who we can hang with and who we can't, I think us and every team in the North Division or teams in the other divisions will say they'll worry about that when they get there, if they do get through.
You only worry about the team in front of you.
I think that's the way that every team.
You can't look months down the road.
And the last one here, we'll go to Mike O'Gello. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, Kyle. Regarding tactics at the deadline, and assuming that you're not limited to a money in, money out scenario, the inventiveness of what happened last year with the Leonard deal, where you acted as a middleman to retain salary, is that a tactic that you may use?
I think the hindrance on that, Mike, would be that I don't know many teams that have that have that cap space available to serve in that role. But we would explore everything we possibly could if it meant improving the team.
The other part is the quarantine. There have been reports regarding the quarantine potentially being reduced to 7 days, but it sounds like you're under the assumption and you're operating under the assumption that it's still going to be 14 days.
Yeah, I think that is a decision that is going to come far above my level. I think that's a government and NHL discussion. I know that in the bubble in the summer and then again in training camp, there was the modified quarantine because of the level of testing that our players and people are doing, which is daily, and they did allow it so that because you were, once you tested for 7 days and you were clear, you were allowed to go between home and the rink. And that was in the summer and then again in January, but that's elapsed now. So that was something that was worked out with the NHL and the government of Canada. And so we'll continue to abide by the current rules until they tell us that they're different. And I'm hopeful for not just for hockey, but for everybody that
that we can see some light at the end of the tunnel here and begin to work our way through it.
Hallelujah.
A little bit of normal life as we head towards the summer.
Hallelujah. So that is it. One thing I wanted to go over was Mr. Galchenyuk here.
First up, we'll go to Kevin McGran, Toronto Star. Go ahead, Kevin.
Very interesting what he says.
What do you make of this opportunity that's before you now? And you kind of look at your time with the Marlies as an opportunity to get your game back, maybe treat it a bit like a training camp. Like how do you approach what's happening to you this week?
For sure, I think it was great for me to go down there and play a lot of games because over the last month, didn't play that much and get my legs moving, get my game back to where it needs to be, and get the timing and everything, and work hard, work on my game, and it was a great opportunity for me to go there and prepare for what's ahead of me here.
Next up, we'll go to Kristen Shilton, TSN. Go ahead, Kristen.
Hey, Alex, in what ways has it been most beneficial for you to work with the skills coaches and kind of be eased into a new organization like this?
I'm thinking in every way. I feel really comfortable here in Toronto, and I give a lot of credit to the organization. The time they put in to work on me and get my game back where it needs to be, it's amazing. So really appreciate it, and just gotta keep sticking to it and do my best.
That right there, I don't know if you guys heard the crack in his voice. It sounded, I don't know why his voice was cracking like that. It sounded like he got, maybe he was getting a little bit emotional there, but in general, he's like, they're amazing in every way. The time they're putting into me, getting my game where it needs to be, making me feel comfortable. He's like, I feel so comfortable. And I was watching footage of the practice. He's skating around, guys like John Tavares, Ilya Mikheyev, laughing with him, talking with him. He feels comfortable. He's gonna get an opportunity. He's an offensive guy. He's a high talent guy. So he has to play in the top 6 to get a proper kick at the can here. So, if he ends up playing Friday or Saturday or, whenever he decides to play and he gets some time with some serious line mates, William Nylander can make some plays and he can make some gorgeous passes. If this guy, sometimes gratitude makes you try harder. You're so grateful for the opportunity somebody gives you. This may be his last opportunity in the NHL. Speaks volumes.
Next up, we'll go to Chris Johnston, Sportsnet. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Alex. I'm just wondering what you liked best about the way you played with the Marlies.
I'm happy that my game, I keep progressing with each game, keep getting better and better, and played a lot of ice time, played in a lot of different situations, and haven't done that in a year or so. So get going down there and finding my game, and to bring it here, that was huge for me.
We'll take a couple more. We'll go to Joshua Cloak, The Athletic. Go ahead, Josh.
Alex, how do you feel your skating improved working with Barb Underhill, if at all?
Yeah, it's definitely something to be working on, something I've been focusing, starting, from the summer, and to be coming here and keep doing more and more. It's not that easy of a switch, you have to put in a lot of reps and a lot of time in it, but I feel like my progress is improving a lot, and it's definitely helping my game.
And last two here, we'll go to Mark Masters, TSN. Go ahead, Mark.
Alex, what stands out skating alongside Tavares and Nylander today, and what do you make of that potential opportunity?
I don't have to sit here long enough to talk how great of players they are, and how good it is to, go on there and practice with them, and hopefully get a chance to play with them on the line, and such a high-skilled players, and they seem to make those crazy plays with ease, and definitely see how hard they work in practice, and just great players, and just an amazing opportunity for me.
And last one here, we'll go back to Kevin McGran. Go ahead, Kevin.
You hear that, Leafs fans? Alex Galchenyuk said Nylander works hard in practice. His work ethic is great. He's highly talented. He makes crazy plays. All the things that you Twitter monsters say Nylander doesn't do.
Alex, you've been counted on to be a big minutes player before. You've scored 30 goals a couple of times. When you look at yourself as a player, when you see what you can do you think of yourself as a goal scorer that you get the 30 again if given the chance in a regular season, or how do you see yourself as a hockey player going forward?
I mean, yeah, for sure. I think one of my biggest strengths in my game is my shot, and need to use it well. And
He does have a cannon for a shot. You don't just lose that overnight.
I need to come in and get in openings on the ice and where to use my shot, and also finding them. It's definitely a huge opportunity for me.
First up, we'll go to Kevin McGran, Toronto Star. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, Morgan, I want to talk a little bit about Alex Galchenyuk. You and he are the same draft year. I wonder if you ever go back and look at the draft and...
So that's really it. That's really it. It's going to be... I'm super nervous for the next 2 weeks. I'm dying to see what kind of a deal Kyle Dubas comes up with to improve the Leafs. He's willing to pay the price. He knows what this team needs and needs a left winger. And unfortunately, a guy like Kerfoot, he's versatile. He plays wing, he plays center, but he's not super effective. My knocks on Kerfoot and pretty much a guy like Marner is the same thing. The Leafs have played 30 games this season, and I don't remember one time. Like, let's say last night, I'm watching the Rangers game. Their entire coaching staff is in quarantine. The New York Rangers come out, and they win like 9-0. And Mika Zibanejad scores 3 goals and 3 assists. Now, the guy's not a superstar, Mika Zibanejad. He's not one of the top 10 players in the NHL. But every once in a while, he has a crazy game. He goes off. He gets like 3 or 4 points, or it's not just the number of points. Getting 3 or 4 points is not really that big of a deal if they're coming in the form of 4-foot passes on the power play. Mika Zibanejad can take over games, and he does it sometimes, and he did it a lot last year. And the Leafs have played 30 games this season, and I haven't seen Marner do that once this year. Like, take over a game. Hey, guys, don't worry about it. I'm going tonight. I feel it, and we're gonna win tonight. It's all me. Like, that killer instinct. Go after bad teams like the Ottawa Senators and rack up points. McDavid and Draisaitl have 30 points, 30-plus points against the Ottawa Senators because they're just racking up points against bad teams. That's killer instinct. They see blood in the water and they go for it. I don't see that with the guys like Marner. He has all the talent in the world. He's playing on his childhood favorite team. I just don't see that killer instinct. You don't see his eyes light up when he sees the Ottawa Senators. There's blood in the water. That goaltender in net is, he didn't have an NHL win in his career until he played the Leafs. So, you look at that game and Nylander's in front of the net, crashing and banging, scores a goal. Nylander behind the net makes a great play. Gets it out front to Hyman, scores a goal. Hyman scored 2 goals. I see all these guys in the front of the net crashing and banging, trying to do whatever it takes to get some goals, to tie it up, try to win it, do whatever it takes. I don't see, all the things people say about William Nylander, he doesn't go into tough areas, he's lazy, blah, blah, blah. But he was there in front of the net, crashing and banging and trying to get goals. And he scored a goal and he got an assist in front of the net. Where was Mitch Marner? All the things that, Nylander does this. What does Mitch Marner do that Nylander doesn't? Hey, man. I'm a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, and I love this team, and I love all the players. But a guy like Nylander who makes 6.9 is not comparable to a guy who makes $11 million in Mitch Marner. He's the highest paid playmaker in the history of the sport. He's being paid as the best. He hasn't taken over a game. He hasn't dominated a game this season. Yes, there are games where he's gotten 3 or 4 points, but he hasn't dominated a game like Mika Zibanejad did last night. Or like the way Ehlers does, or the way Kyle Connor does. We need Mitch Marner to step up and be a little bit better than he is. I'm not asking him to score a shit ton of goals, because he's not a goal scorer, he's a playmaker. But there's a lot he can do to influence the outcome of a game, and he's not doing enough. I don't care how many points he has this season. He needs to dominate, and he's not. And he's getting paid way too much. So it's great to want $11 million. Now you got to go out there and earn that $11 million. And standing on the power play, making 4 or 5 foot passes to Morgan Riley, who either wrists it on net and the Leafs score, or passes it off to Matthews and he shoots and he scores. That's not earning $11 million. I don't care if Mitch Marner is number 1 in points in the NHL right now. He's not doing enough to help this team win, and he's supposed to be the offensive catalyst, the best playmaker. He needs to get to that level. So most probably I'll see you guys Saturday morning. We'll review Friday night's game, if not Sunday morning, and we'll review both games. But my gut feeling says Galchenyuk is going to make a difference. I think he's going to make more of an impact than Jimmy Vesey. I don't think he's going to be a superstar by any stretch of the imagination. But he's going to bring more to the lineup than Jimmy Vesey did. And, when Wayne Simmons coming back, and I think Campbell was at practice, he took full practice. So it may be that both Simmons and Campbell are available this weekend. The Leafs do have a back-to-back, so hopefully Freddie plays one, Campbell plays the other, and we get 2 wins back-to-back, and we get back to enjoying life again as Leaf fans, because we only seem to enjoy life when the Leafs are winning. So I'll see you guys either Saturday or Sunday morning. Stay safe, everybody. Enjoy this weather. It's warming up in Toronto.